Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for participating in this session, along with a very special guest, Susan Cathyland, IEEE President-elect for 2020.
Muchas gracias. Buenas tardes a todos. Muchas gracias por participar en esta sesión junto a una invitada muy especial, Susan Cathyland, Presidenta electa del IEEE para 2020.
First of all, we'll introduce our guest. Ms. Land is IEEE President-elect, an IEEE Fellow, and is the author or co-author of a number of text, papers, webinars, all supporting sound software engineering principles and practical applications of software process methodologies.
Para dar inicio a la sesión, presentaremos a nuestra invitada, la señora Land, que es Presidenta electa del IEEE, becaria del IEEE y es autora o coautora de una serie de textos, documentos y seminarios en la web que respaldan los principios de la ingeniería del software y la aplicación práctica de las metodologías de los procesos de software.
Please, to make the session more fluid, turn off your cameras and microphones. You may turn your microphones on during the question and answer period.
Por favor, para darle fluidez a la sesión, solicitamos que apaguen sus cámaras y micrófonos. Podrán encender sus micrófonos durante el espacio de preguntas y respuestas.
Please, Ms. Land, your turn to begin the session.
Thank you so much. So let me know if you can see the screen.
Not yet. Now we see it.
Okay. All right. So my understanding is that someone is going to be typing subtitles while I speak.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll try to speak slowly. So I'm very excited to be able to talk with you today about something that is extremely important to every individual who chooses technology as a career field. However, in computer science and engineering, the importance of this is something that is not often talked about. So today you'll be hearing about something I call the Fantastic Five. And these are the 5 soft skills that I feel are critical for every technical professional. What I hope to do today is to provide you with 5 soft skill target areas for you to work on so that you can increase your personal confidence, the value to your company, and as a byproduct, your technical skills. So what exactly are soft skills? To begin with, soft skills are those things that are intrinsic to who you are. They are hard and make us uncomfortable to practice. But like any skill, practice makes perfect. Like any muscle, the more you exercise, the stronger it becomes. And like any muscle, it's painful at first. And as the saying goes, no pain, no gain. What's important to remember with these skills is that they are portable across all industries. It does not matter if you are an educator or an automobile mechanic. If you are a good communicator, this translates. So let me describe the difference briefly between hard skills and soft skills. I already mentioned that soft skills are transferable across industries. And that would imply that hard skills are industry specific. And yes, that's the case. Additionally, people tend to start with a set of natural abilities. For example, they might be naturally outgoing. Another difference is that hard skills are based on the acquisition of technical knowledge, where soft skills are related to emotional intelligence. So I don't know if you've ever heard of IQ or EQ, and that's what I'm talking about. So you can see in the examples of how soft and hard skills are described. For soft skills, a person might be described as detail-oriented or working well under tight deadlines. And as for hard skills, they might be skilled in various specific programming languages or possess a specific bachelor's degree. So you'll hear me talk about how important soft skills are throughout this talk, either in my words or in the words of others. So I'll take this opportunity to echo the sentiments of CEO of LinkedIn, Jeff Weiner. When I say I have many technical people that work for me that can solve complex problems, but only a few who are equipped with the skills required to run teams, to negotiate contracts, or to present to customers. Soft skills immediately take people out of their comfort zones. In schools, we're measured on our hard skills. It's easy. We study and we pass a test. Soft skills are hard. But you should care and want to work on these just as much as you did to make an A on that test in thermodynamics. And here's why. Employers seek out individuals and want to keep and promote people who can complement their hard skills with softer skills. This recent data that I found is pretty striking. It reflects that 72% of CEOs believe that soft skills are more important to the success of their businesses than hard skills, and that 94% of recruiters believe that soft skills outweigh experience, and that 94% of recruiting professionals believe an employee with stronger soft skills has a better chance of being promoted to a leadership position than an employee with more years of experience, but with weaker soft skills. The bottom line is that the qualifier in every report that I found, and from my own experience as a manager, and the reason I chose this topic today, is that soft skills are what separate the good from the great. So I just described why you should care about this, but why do I care? So I've been responsible for delivering software and systems products for years as a hiring manager for the teams that build and deliver these items. And it's critical that team members possess both hard and soft skills. I found out pretty quickly early in my career that I could hire the most talented programmer, but if this person could not communicate technically in the simplest terms with a customer, then they were lacking in a critical skill that was required for requirements development and design, essential to successful product development and delivery. So my arrival at what I'm calling the Fantastic Five. How did I end up with my list? Well, I did some research, and there are generally lists of recommendations anywhere from 3 to 15. And I wanted to give you a list that was easy to remember. Lists of more than 5 items are hard to remember. I listened to employment recruiters and what they are telling us they think are important. I listened to other technical managers. And the key here is other technical managers, not HR or human resource managers or people looking to hire for sales. They're looking for different soft skills. In addition, I referenced my own experience. As I said, I've been doing this for about 30 years. This probably factored more heavily into my decision-making than anything else. So here's my list of the Fantastic Five. I want you to all know why I'm calling this fantastic. I want you to remember this word. It means extraordinarily good. So these are the soft skills that will help you to be extraordinarily good, to shine and to achieve. These are communication, teamwork, critical and analytical thinking, interpersonal skills, and work ethic. I'll go through each of these in detail, and it's my hope that you'll work on these long after this webinar. So I've provided you with a mnemonic. So a mnemonic is something that helps you remember. I've used these in school to help me remember things, so I provided one here. So if you can't remember communication, teamwork, critical and analytical thinking, interpersonal skills, and work ethic, you can do some word association. So what I've done is you'll see cold turkeys, chewed ice whiskey. So where cold is communication, team is turkeys, critical thinking is chewing on it. Iced is what you don't want to have happen to your interpersonal skills. And whiskey is the opposite of work ethic. So cold turkeys, chewed ice whiskey, or you can come up with your own. So let's talk communication. This soft skill is usually at the top of most of the lists, and it tops my list for a number of reasons. As I previously described one of these, you must be able to discuss technology clearly, simply, and concisely with non-technical people to be successful. So let's talk for a moment about those of you who don't want to work in a typical academic or even a corporate environment, but want to become entrepreneurs. I think this soft skill is the single most important thing for entrepreneurs to cultivate. You must be able to talk to investors. You must be able to communicate your ideas and your plans to others. If not, you will not be successful. Communication is not just verbal communication. Most emphasize the importance of clear verbal communication because it's where most of us tend to be the weakest and where we need the most practice. However, written communication is the second area where I see the most need for improvement. The ability to clearly and effectively communicate is critical, as we see in the Holmes report that is often cited. It reports that barriers to communication result in over $26,000 of losses annually for each employee in the companies studied. These are non-trivial losses to the corporate bottom line. So you may have heard of something called the 7-Eleven. We have stores in the United States called 7-Eleven. That's the logo that you see on the screen. That it's something, I heard about this when I was in college, and it's still being used today. And it used to bother me, and it's within the first 7 seconds of meeting someone that you are making 11 impressions. And it used to really intimidate me. I don't know about you, but think about it. In the first 7 seconds that I meet someone, I'm trying to remember their name. I'm trying to think of something to say, and I'm simply trying to survive the introduction. I'm not making a judgment call about that person. Now, that's just me, maybe. At some point during my career, I started to doubt the 7-Eleven statement. So I looked for the research, and guess what? It appears that this is not backed by research, and the only reference I could find claimed the source was a university study by Michael Solomon, who's a PhD in psychologist at NYU, and his response was that this was an urban myth. He said that he's frequently asked about this, but he has done no such study to support this claim. So that's good news. Of course, there's lots of evidence that suggests that people do quickly make judgments about others. with only limited information. There's just no research that specifically quantifies it to be 11 decisions in 7 seconds. So regardless of the exact timeline and the number of decisions, we shouldn't jump to conclusions about people when we first meet them. One thing that is backed by research is that when an audience does not understand your explanation, particularly a technical explanation, they find you to be less smart. You lose their respect, and you experience a loss of credibility. Too many times I've seen people try to impress with how much technical knowledge they possess. The typical audience is not there to try a PhD thesis. Most messaging should be targeted at an 11th or 12th grade level. It's important to try to make sure your message is clear and focused, and that it's delivered in short chunks. If not, you will not be successful with what you're trying to convey. So I like this cartoon. It says, "Dude, why haven't you answered my email?" And he says, "Your message was so poorly written that I didn't understand it, and I didn't dare try to start a dialogue." And he said, "Maybe I should have a talk with your boss." And then Dilbert says, "Well, maybe you should email him." And that's about the importance of written communication. So this is a very practical example. So where words have meaning. So my husband and I have horses, and periodically we take our horses and ride at different places. So can you tell what's wrong with the sign on the signpost? My husband's getting water for the horses. So I walked by this signpost many times, but my husband figured out what was wrong with it. Those are my husband's legs. So consumption and consummation have very different meanings. And what the signpost says is not for human consummation. So I can't help but think what type of liability this horse camp was trying to protect against. So words do have meaning. So using text messaging and email, remember while in the office or while using email in general, that it's a more permanent record and should be considered a more formal communication vehicle. Most companies keep email for a minimum of a year. So be aware of that when you're sending emails. I'm using your company email. When texting people, people are engaging in forms of writing using more informal rule structures. They make their writing sound more like a conversation. And the style of writing often attempts to incorporate the use of nonverbal communication like emoticons to accent the writing. So, and sometimes this leaks over into more formal corporate email, which you should be sensitive about. So consider the two examples in the box above on the slide. One is an example of correspondence using text, and the other is roughly the rough equivalent version using email. So pay attention when you're using if you're in an office environment, to how you're corresponding, even if it's to a friend, because it is a permanent record. So a long time ago, someone described to me the various methods of communication and their levels of effectiveness. And it's always stuck with me. It's something I've never forgotten. Because at the time, I thought that calling someone on the phone or sending an email was just as effective as speaking to them face-to-face. But after hearing this person speak and putting what they told me to the test, I never call someone if I can go speak to them in person about something important. It also signals to the individual how important it is, the conversation or the topic that you're conveying when you go speak to them face-to-face, or how important they are. So face-to-face is the most, if you're trying to avoid a misunderstanding or you want to convey something that's important, go talk to them face to face. And then the least effective form is a text message. So another item I want to discuss, when you're interacting with someone, it's very important to pay attention to how you're interacting with people so that you facilitate and enable joint understanding. So the environment that I work in is full of people that are very solution oriented. We are all looking for the answer. We're all looking to get to done, and it's very fast paced. We all, myself included, tend to interrupt, jump to conclusions, finish each other's sentences, change the subject, and fail to ask questions and provide feedback when we should. It's just the nature of the environment. So this is something that I know that I have personally had to work on in order to become a better communicator. And being a better listener is part of the answer to the communication equation. So my second of the Fantastic Five is teamwork. I've defined teamwork as the skill that allows you to operate well in a group setting in the workplace to quickly and effectively accomplish tasks. So it sounds easy, but you would be surprised at how many new hires cannot function in a teaming environment. And this is critical in product development. If people cannot team, they do not last, no matter their technical skill set. Some of the sub-skills that I've identified as critically important are listed on the left. And you can see these, I'll read through them. They're accepting feedback so that you can improve, collaboration, cooperation, coordination, conflict management, customer service, decision-making, interpersonal skills, negotiation and mediation, persuasion, self-awareness, social skills, and team building. So when I talk about teamwork and how people might fit in, they're often confused. Individuals know about the role of the team leader, and often this is either the role they picture in their mind that they want, or it's the role they don't want. So I wanted to put up this slide and talk about some of the other team roles. So there might be, and these are just some labels. They can be any roles that you might want to define yourself for the different team roles, but there's like the idea person, there might be the encourager or the compromiser, the summarizer, the evaluator, but these are just generic. You would have more formally defined team roles on your team. The important thing to remember is that the team is organic and each person has a place and each person needs to find their best fit. So it's also important to remember that teams are temporary. You may not think that your team role for, say, 2020 is ideal, but make it your best fit and leverage this role for a better one in 2021. And that's what teamwork is. Work within the team to find out where you can best support and then move on to the next team. So I'm going to mention verbal communication again, this time specifically with the focus on teaming. The first thing I want to mention about speaking is about speaking in front of a group. This takes practice. And one thing I'd like to say is that there is a difference between being scared and being nervous. So it's natural to be nervous. People think they shouldn't be nervous, but it's natural to be nervous. Getting a case of nerves before getting in front of a group, it may be a meeting or a larger group, is perfectly fine. Just remember, people are people. Just be prepared. If you need to practice to get over being scared, that's what you need to do. Being scared is what is prohibitive and will prevent you from being a good to great speaker. With any presentation, it's important to think about your overall approach, the entirety of your presentation. Be sure that you do enough research. The better prepared you are, the more comfortable you will be with your audience. I find it always helps to try to use humor to get a point across. This makes you more comfortable and also makes your audience connect as well. Also try to use examples to help the audience understand the points you're trying to convey. Verbally communicating with teams is usually about how to convey getting to done. And what I mean by this is, I'll provide an example. On a recent effort, I met with some of my staff to discuss a technical presentation to senior leadership. They all knew the target presentation date and the topic, but during the meeting, I had to further describe what done looked like. This entailed describing the walk-up review schedule, the details of the presentation content, my expectations, who was going to be responsible as the book boss or configuration control, and other details. It was important for me during this meeting to ask questions to ensure that everyone understood, to paraphrase what I thought I heard, and to encourage everyone present to share and provide input to ensure that we were not missing something. With clients, verbal communication is probably the single most important tool you have. It's important to focus on their needs, to ask for clarification, ask open-ended questions. Too many times I've seen vendor-customer sessions where the clients were told what they needed and were not heard. The ultimate results from these relationships were not optimal. Even though you may be enthusiastic about your capabilities and your products, you must listen to your clients. As one of the Fantastic Five, it's important that you are able to demonstrate teamwork as one of your core capabilities. You can build this skill by creating your own project or finding opportunities to work within a group or team. If you see these opportunities at work, do not avoid them, which is a natural tendency. Join them. IEEE volunteer opportunities also provide a natural, safe space to grow your teamwork soft skills. When working in a team, do not worry about who gets the credit. Be part of the team. Do your part, pitch in, and contribute, and the credit will come. Remember, you are part of a whole. Work with all the group members, contribute and share ideas and opinions. Take responsibility for something and see it through to delivery. And if you provide feedback, ensure it is done in a constructive and positive manner. So I read a lot of leadership books, and I particularly like the books by Brené Brown, which is the quote at the bottom. And so I love this quote: "A leader is someone who takes responsibility for finding the potential in people and processes and has the courage to develop that potential." So I just wanted to show this slide. I thought it was cute. I came across it. It demonstrates very simply what I was talking about: teamwork. Two kids, both contributing toward a common shared end goal. A good visual to remind us that sometimes the work may not be glamorous, but the end result is often worth the effort. So studies describe the average individual makes about 35,000 conscious decisions a day. The soft skill that helps you improve this daily decision making is critical and analytical thinking. The skill helps you to think creatively and helps to keep you from becoming fixed and narrow. The skill is very important in fast-paced technically challenging, and constantly changing environments. According to the World Economic Forum, critical thinking and complex problem solving are the two top in-demand skills that employers are looking for. Critical and analytical thinking is deciding what is true and what you should do. The key sub-skills I associate with this soft skill are critical observation, logical thinking, problem solving, and open-mindedness. So this is a pretty busy chart, but the key things that I want to talk about on it are to describe analytical thinking, which is the mental process of breaking down complex information or comprehensive data into the fundamental parts or basic principles. Critical thinking is the mental process of carefully evaluating information and determining how to interpret it in order to make sound judgments. So you might start with a claim or a statement or an issue or a problem or a task. And the goal is to perform an objective analysis resulting in some type of judgment deposition without getting stuck in the tar pit of misunderstanding, reluctance to critique, lack of focus, or just digging your heels in. So the key to developing critical thinking as a soft skill with the other soft skills, as I previously mentioned, is to practice. And in this area, it's problem-solving practice. So, the keys to critical thinking success that I'd like to mention include resiliency. That's the key. And I often see people or teams, as I mentioned before, where I work, they rush to done or rush to solutions. It's important to step back and question, are you really at the correct solution? Another critical thinking killer goes back to communication. I'm sure you may have seen this as well. Someone gets committed to a solution or idea. They don't like this, or they don't like the solution at all. And all the forward progress toward the solution stops. So there are a number of good resources out there that might help you practice, but I've highlighted a couple here that I thought were good. The Critical Thinking Skills Workbook and also the Analytical Mind. So the key to practicing your critical skills development is the ability to step back, to remain objective, and to be able to listen to all input and remain neutral and persevere. So the next skill of the fantastic soft skills that I'd like to talk about is interpersonal skills. So I'd like to quote Stephen Covey, who stated that you cannot continuously improve interdependent systems and processes until you progressively perfect interdependent interpersonal relationships. So I don't know if you've heard about Myers-Briggs. It's a personality inventory that you can take to see if you're where you fall on this. It tells you, if you're introverted, extroverted, all kinds of things. But most programmers and engineers prefer to focus on their inner worlds or are introverts. According to a study published by Baumeister and Leary, no matter how introverted we might be or how much we think we don't like other people, we all need connection and engagement with others to thrive. The need to belong in interpersonal connection is recognized as being fundamental to motivation and productivity. Positive face-to-face interactions where we receive empathy and connect with one another is highly correlated with human satisfaction and creativity. Interpersonal soft skills are important because they help us develop and foster strong working relationships with each other and with clients. They contribute to increasing team and organizational productivity and help to create an overall more positive work environment. Good interpersonal skills are particularly important when working in fast-paced or constantly changing and challenging work environments. So as with the other soft skills, you can also practice your interpersonal skills. These soft skills are something you can work on each day as you interact with others at work or even at home. Some basic things you need to think about are how you engage with others. Do you pay attention and actively listen? Do you look at people when they're talking to you? Do you let people finish their sentences? Do you ask them questions? These are ways to show that you are interested and are engaged. Think about your voice, the tone and cadence. Do you speak too softly, too quickly? Also think about your body language, particularly in meetings. Stay engaged, stay off your cell phone. Being able to read body language helps us to know how people feel and what they mean, and to understand how people might perceive our own nonverbal signals, and to understand ourselves better. So I have a friend who used to be a police interrogator. You know, I work in a pretty unusual place, missile defense. So we get people from all walks of life. I asked him for some insight as to some classic body language, what they tells might be. And it was interesting, as we were on a video teleconference on mute, people on the other end could not hear what we were saying. So we were having a side conversation because two of the people on the other end, it was some controversial discussion was going on. And there were two men that did the same thing at the same time on the other end of the video teleconference. They took their ties, their neckties, and they both played with their neckties, and then they folded their hands in front of them. And so I asked my friend who used to be this interrogator, I said, did what they just do mean something? And he said, yes, that playing with your tie is a self-soothing gesture. The men were uncomfortable with the topic being discussed, and they adjusted their tie. And that when they crossed their hands on the table, it was a defensive gesture. And it was just unbelievable to me because they both did it at the same time. It looked like they were, you know, synchronized. So I have something, I put together a matrix that I sent to the organizers of this webinar. That's a whole matrix of body language. So they can send it out to the attendees, to all the registered attendees. And if you want that, you can request it from them, and they can send it to you. It's got some interesting information in it. So another thing that's really important is to believe in yourself. One of the biggest things that will affect how you interact with others is if there's an area where you're insecure. If you need an area technically where maybe not, where you might need some additional training, address it. There's no reason for insecurity to affect how you relate to others. Don't get involved. And one area that's also will affect interpersonal relationships is don't get involved with the office drama. Stay neutral. Don't complain and remain positive. If you are unhappy with something in the office, address your specific issues with your manager. Try to mentor and guide others where appropriate, and be inclusive. Network with others in the company that are outside your immediate group area. Attend industry events and leverage local IEEE activities. So the fifth soft skill on the list is work ethic. There are many definitions of work ethic, but many of these are one-dimensional. These definitions do not capture the associated attitudes, behaviors, responsibilities, and communication. So I've taken a stab at a definition here, and work ethic is how you feel about your job, how you do your job, as well as the level of respect you show your coworkers and others at your job. From this definition, you can see how the key characteristics that you should have are listed and directly relate to it. And these are attentiveness, your business ethics, competitiveness, dedication, dependability, following directions and staying on task, meeting deadlines, self-motivation and self-management, perseverance and persistence, proper business etiquette, and working well under pressure. So why is it so important to have a good and strong work ethic? Well, ultimately, it will show the strength of your character and present you as an all-around positive person. In the workplace, this will be to your advantage. If you're looked at favorably by your coworkers and superiors, you'll have better chances at advancing your career. So I've listed a few key items to start with to practice a good work ethic. Be on time for all appointments and meetings and arrive a bit early. I do this. I still do this. Pay attention to how you're dressing. Have you read the office dress code? Are you in compliance? Are you dressing for the job you want? Put your phone away at work. Keep it on silent. Do your best, but stay balanced. Remember to take care of yourself. If you're in a job, you're paid for 40 hours a week. If your company is experiencing too many, if they expect too many uncompensated overtime hours, if they have unrealistic expectations, you may need to dust off your resume. So I've presented what I view as the top 5 soft skills. And to recap, it's cold turkeys, chewed ice whiskey, communication, teamwork, critical thinking, interpersonal skills, and work ethic. But having all these skills won't get you the job unless you're able to translate these to your resume. So when developing your resume, it's important to think balance. Balance your soft and hard skills. They should complement each other so that you become an employee that is desired. For example, I would look for an engineer who is both highly technically competent while being able to understand business and acquisition, as well as one that possesses the ability to communicate with clients. So here's an example of a technique for translating your skills into resume format. It's called STAR. I'll warn you that this method is tough. It requires several iterations, and I'd highly recommend you enlist someone to help you, someone you trust to review your content as you iterate through the revisions. This is from my resume, and you can see that you start with what's the problem, the goal, what step you took to reach your goal, and what was the final outcome. So I provided technical leadership for the United States Department of the Army Research Directorate, Software Engineering Directorate, America's Army Program, for the first large-scale use of game technology by the U.S. government as a platform for strategic communication, and first use of game technology in support of U.S. Army recruiting, employing realistic models and simulations. Under my technical leadership and production execution, the program delivered its first public versions of the game, blah, blah, blah. The success of America's Army pushed the boundaries of commercial game realism and combat depiction with its incorporation of world-based models. So you can see what you're telling them is, you solved a problem and then the final outcome. All right, so then when you also put your resume together, think of other soft skills that demonstrate communication. Have you presented anywhere? Were you an author? What were some examples of teamwork? If you work in IEEE as a volunteer, you can draw from those as examples. So in conclusion, soft skills are not fluffy, nice to have value add-ons. They're hard won, and you have to really work at them, and they're power skills. You should be sure that you cultivate these soft skills and point to these when you're writing your resume. Managers and HR recruiters look for these when they're hiring people. So I hope that this has been informative, and I thank you for your time and attention today. If you have any follow-up questions or would like to contact me, that's my information. I'm very active on Instagram. I think that's how the organizers of this meeting contacted me. And also, that's my email address. So thank you, and I'll stop sharing.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Land. And these concepts enrich us enormously. All right, we'll have a question and answer session now. You can ask your questions by turning on your microphones, or you can write them in the chat room and we'll pass them on through our guest.
Muchas gracias, señora Land. Estos conceptos nos enriquecen enormemente. Muy bien, ahora tendremos un espacio para preguntas y respuestas. Pueden realizar sus preguntas encendiendo sus micrófonos, o bien pueden escribirlas en el chat y nosotros las transmitiremos a nuestra invitada.
Here we have a question from Gustavo. Susan, for you, what was the most difficult skill to develop?
So I think the most difficult skill for me to develop was communication, particularly public speaking. I used to shake. I can remember I had just been hired by a Navy program. I think I was about 24 years old, and I had to go speak before the Secretary of the Navy about a program that I had only been on for 2 weeks. And it was in an auditorium of about 400 people. And I mean, anybody would be nervous, but I wasn't just, I talked about being nervous and being scared. I was petrified. And and I didn't know what questions would be asked. There was no way to really be prepared. So, but I've had many of those types of experiences throughout my career, and now I don't get scared anymore. So, but that's the type of thing that I think that's been the toughest, because I'm not naturally an extrovert. I'm more of an introvert. So that's been the toughest thing.
Okay. I have a question. It's a personal question. Mrs. Lund, we have many participants here. Many of them are IEEE members, but there are many of others who are not. In this regard, what would you tell them to get involved with IEEE, and why should they become members?
Señora Land, aquí tenemos muchos participantes.
So here's what.
Sorry,
Okay.
I will introduce it.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
Aquí tenemos
Go ahead.
participantes, muchos de ellos son miembros de IEEE, pero hay muchos otros que no lo son. En ese sentido, ¿qué les diría usted para que se involucren con el IEEE? ¿Por qué deberían convertirse en miembros? Okay.
So I think that we spend too much time talking to people about being members. You want me to stop and you can translate, and then I'll go on?
No, go on, please.
Or, okay, all right. Okay, so I think we spend too much time speaking to people about being members. I was an IEEE volunteer, and I participated in IEEE activities for 3 years before I became a member. I worked in IEEE standards. working on a standard that I cared about. It was a standard that helped me with my product development teams. And then when I wanted to ballot on the standard, you can work in standards, you don't have to be a member, but if you want to ballot on the standard, you have to be an IEEE member. So I joined, and that's how I got involved. And then, it's been 25 years of, more and more IEEE activity, and it's the best thing I ever did. But we have many, many ways that people can become IEEE volunteers, and it will enrich their lives. We have, site humanitarian activities. We have local chapter activities, standards activities, conference events, all kinds of things. They can present at conferences. All these things that you don't have to be a member. But at some point, they may decide, well, I want to help organize a conference. I want to become more involved. And then they can become a member, or they can become a member right away. But, it's the best thing I ever did. And there are tons of benefits to becoming a member. It's not hard. All you have to do is join. But sometimes people want to test the waters before they join. So, I think what I tell people is look and see if there's something that you want to do and participate in, and try it out first. So that's what I tell people. But we would love to have you as a member.
It's a good advice. I think we all started as volunteers, and now we are very involved with IEEE Universe. So I'll invite them to be members and volunteers first. So let's keep on the questions. From Gerardo, what techniques do you recommend to improve emotional intelligence?
So the key to improving emotional intelligence is listening, and eye contact, and looking beyond the end of your own nose, getting away from your cell phone. I think that's the key, is one-on-one conversations. But that's, to me, that's the practice, is one-on-one relationships, and those types of things.
So we are experiencing some issues, but I think your answer was able to listen. Camila has another question. She said, how do we improve our speech in a second language?
Well, I only speak English, so I'm the wrong person to ask. I think it's a gift when people can speak two languages. I'm very skilled technically, but I don't have any skills in language. And I think it's a gift when people can be bilingual or multilingual. I always joke and say I speak Southern, which is the Southern United States. But I don't know. I've tried. I've got right now, I have up 2 versions of Google Translate behind the webinar, from Spanish to English and English to Spanish, in case I needed it. But I admire, I don't know. I'm not the right person to ask. And I admire anybody that I tried for many years. So I can tell you, I can order chicken and beer in just about any language, and that's it.
Okay. I have another question. When do you think that these personal skills, these soft skills, became so important? Because we talk about them in this time a lot, but it's a new area, I think.
Because it's so critical. So it's important because, especially if you're in product development, and if you're in a research lab, I'm probably gonna get thrashed for this, but if you're in a research environment, not so much. But if you're in product development, where you have to understand how to build products, how to deliver products. If you're going to work for Microsoft or Google or Amazon or missile defense or any company that develops a product, and you have to be able to talk to customers, elicit requirements, understand design, get in front of a general or anybody and talk, or talk to customers, be an entrepreneur. They're extremely important. You can be the smartest algorithm engineer, but if you cannot talk to your customer and understand how that algorithm should perform, you are of no value to me as a hiring manager. That's why they're so important. And for many years, people would go out and hire these uber smart folks out of school who were the smartest algorithm guys, thinking that they would solve the problems, and they couldn't solve the problems because they couldn't communicate, or they couldn't work on a team. They alienated their other team members, or they didn't have any interpersonal skills, right? People didn't want to be around them. So, you sort of have to, it's important to be more well-rounded than just the smartest guy in your class. And that's why you saw those statistics, 97% think that soft skills are more important than just the technical. And that's why it's important to get these in your resume. I'm developing a talk now about how to prepare your resume and how to interview. And so that's the next talk I'm working on, like to partner with this one. So first give you guys this, and then come back and give you, here's what a good I've helped people with their resumes, taken them from terrible to here's one that I think will get you hired. So, and with examples, I got permission to use, I took out the names and the places, but here's a bad example and here's what it looks like when it's done. Because I know that there are tons of resume workshops, that's something that students care about and young professionals care about, but I don't see a lot of real examples being used. So, maybe give a webinar on that, and then how to interview.
We'll get this webinar. We have several questions here. One from Vanessa. Do you consider that these skills are different depending on the position you're at? For example, it has been different now that you are president compared to your previous position you had at IEEE?
So I was TAB vice president, technical activities vice president, before president. And I always say that technical activities eats its young. So technical activities vice president was much harder than this role. I don't know if you know, technical activities are all the societies and councils. And it's a very tough job, and all the conferences and publications. And I worked as, I was president of the Computer Society, which is at the time was the largest society. It's still the largest society, but I think every successive role, I think it's very important to have roles that prepare you for leadership. And I think it's the same when you are in companies. Like I'm a program manager of multiple programs. But, I started out as a programmer. So, and then I led teams, and then I had a section, and then I had a department. And so you build on your previous experience. And I did that in IEEE as well. I started out just as part of a conference organizing committee on a standards, in standards. And then I chaired a working group, and then I was, other things. So yes, but I think there are different skills that you use. But I wouldn't say necessarily, I think I have a lot more help as IEEE president than I did in some of my previous roles, which is good.
All right. We have a questions from Gerardo. When using the STAR method, does it need to be that extensive, or it can be portray that information in a shorter way?
Repeat the first part of the question.
Sure. When using the STAR method, does it need to be that extensive, or it can be portray that information in a shorter way?
Yeah. It can be very short. It can be very short. I developed a database application, that did blah, 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 blah. It can be very short. What you're trying to do is describe something that met a goal that you did that was unique. And you can look up the STAR method, Google it. STAR resume, and it'll come up and tell you, and it'll provide other examples. It's also very good to use the STAR method when you're writing award nominations, senior member elevation nominations, applications for graduate stuff, anything. It's just a really good method, I think.
Sorry, Carla has another question. She wanted to know if it's possible to develop soft skills in a non-communicative teamwork.
In a non-what? And your dog's not bothering me. In your non-what?
In a non-communicative teamwork.
In non-communicative teamwork. Yeah. You can develop soft skills like non-communicative teamwork. Sure. So I don't have the slides up, but there were soft skills on the teamwork slide that had nothing to do with communication. So yes. And you can go on, Google teamwork soft skills, and there are a whole bunch of soft skills that you can find. You'll say, wow, I probably need to work in that area. You'll be able to see the areas that you personally need to work on. I listed the ones I thought were important, but you could probably see the ones that for yourself you think are important.
Well, Carmen has a comment. She found that in her career, in order to improve her soft skills, the narrative skills have been critical to advance on her career. And Saida has a good question. What was your biggest challenge as a leader?
My biggest challenge as a leader. I don't know. I have almost a pathological looking forward. I don't really look backwards, which I don't know what that says about me. Like, you know, some people will look back and go, oh, I have these regrets. I am constantly looking forward. Or people will say to me, oh, I made you mad in, you know, 2009. And I will absolutely not remember the event. I'm always looking forward, like, to the next goal. Biggest challenge. Oh, I know. I can say, I know what it is. When I had 2 children, I have 2 children. Well, when my son died when he was 25, but I have a daughter, she's 30. And they were 13 months apart. And when my children were little, I stayed home for 3 years. I was never meant to stay home and be a stay-home mother. But when I was working, and I have a very supportive husband, he's a PhD engineer, and I have a really funny talk that I give to women in engineering. In the 90s and 80s, they were telling women you could have it all. You know, you could work, you could have kids. And but I was a programmer, and I would, you know, and it was in the days before software engineering really was a thing. And that's why I came to IEEE, to help software engineering become a real thing, because it gave people that were in programming some control over their lives. But I would be at work until like 2 in the morning because some idiot in business development had, you know, bid a contract and not even talk to the developers or talk to the program managers. And we were stuck trying to deliver products with unrealistic schedules and budgets. So that was probably the hardest part for me, was loving my job, but delivering products that had absolutely unrealistic budgets and timelines that we had no say in. And that's when I found IEEE. IEEE was leading in software engineering, and that's what saved, in my opinion, software and really kind of balanced out and kept people in the profession. Because if they had not come up with, you know, how to, that software engineering, software life cycle, and then you had the CMM, and, you know, now you have Lean Six, you know, you had Lean Six Sigma, and now you have Agile. But all of these things that really helped software engineers, programmers get control, and program managers get control of how to estimate budgets and all of these things, that I think we would be seeing a very different reality with what kind of products have been developed, and how many people really would have stayed in the profession. So that was the biggest challenge for me, was working those kinds of hours with small kids.
So I think it had to be, but Saida has a new one, and she said that if you stand up where you are now and look back, what made you the leader you are now?
Well, I don't know an enabler. I try to help folks, and I know that sounds corny, but I've done a lot of reflection, and I'm really, I don't give up, and I think I'm pretty. So there's been a couple of times where, more than once, where there's like the easy thing to do and the right thing to do. And I'm known for, in IEEE and at work, and I'm known for doing the right thing. And I think that's what makes the real difference between, if you want to talk about being a leader, is making the right decision, doing the right thing, not the easy thing. So if you had to ask me, if you had to say if I was a leader, that's how I would characterize what leadership is to me, is doing the right thing, even when it's really scary, and you may be the only person standing up. But when you lead and you do the right thing, everybody follows you. So that's to me.
Okay. I think we have no more questions.
Excuse me.
Oh, Christian.
Yes, hello there. My name is Christian. I'm very pleased to meet you, Madam Land. And I don't have any questions in this moment, but I just want to say thank you very much for sharing with us your experience, your knowledge concerning this field, and for giving us the opportunity of this enriching, stunning meeting. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate the invitation.
If we don't have more questions, thank you very much, Ms. Land. We are grateful for your willingness to participate in this session with our student chapter. Thank you for your time, your advice, and your kindness. We wish you every success in your endeavors next year, and count on us for everything you need.
Okay. All right. All right. Hopefully I'll get to visit you and this COVID will end soon. All right. Thank you.
I want to thank you very much to everyone who participated in this session. We invite you to follow us in your about all the activities and news of our student chapter. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias a todos los que participaron de esta sesión. Los invitamos a seguirnos en nuestros canales de comunicación para que puedan enterarse de todas las actividades y novedades de nuestro capítulo estudiantil. Muchísimas gracias.